Okay, bro, so we just got back from watching the State of Play by Sony, and that video will be coming out soon. I don't know if this one's coming out first. Listen, man, what they have done to Silent Hill 2, I didn't play the game, but this represents absolutely everything. I mean, how you do this whole crap about let's modernize for a modern audience, that whole thing. And this highlights the problem with modern gaming. I mean, there's a ton of things that highlight the problems with modern gaming. I mean, Concord, that game, and their trailer for it, that highlights enough issues with modern gaming, and I went through all of that at the start of the video for State of Play. Then there's a bunch of other issues I get into as we're watching that very long video, by the way, because love of God. Modern developers. Let's start with this, and this has everything to do with also the Silent Hill 2 remake. Modern developers are children. They are adult children, and they don't know how to think and look at the world like normal adults. They don't understand dark psychology, normal psychology, the things that you wrestle with as a normative individual. And let's just face it, modern developers are freaking gay. They're lame, they're gay, and they're mentally deranged lunatics. And when I say mentally deranged lunatics, don't get me wrong here, they are mentally deranged. These are people, they experience copious mental illness, which is what? What is mental illness equal? Because what is mental illness, right? It doesn't exist. It's not real. But what it is mental sabotage. For generations, men and women, they thought very normally. And now, in the modern landscape of modern day thinking, modern day philosophy, whatever, now men and women, they have a lot of problems. And now, for some reason, you have a lot of mentally deranged people. They have perforated beyond belief. And we have perpetuated this thinking where being a deranged lunatic is to be seen as normal, okay? Is to be celebrated. And now you have these companies, Sony, Xbox, go down the list. They're all embracing irregularity within human psychological thinking, that to be deranged is to be normal. And this is the point that we've gotten to, is that normal people, they have somehow become irregular. And somehow the freaks, the lunatics, they are now running what used to be a freaking playground for everyone else. Now they turn the playground into an insane asylum. So you look at a game like Silent Hill 2. For one, they turned Angela. I have no idea who her character is, because again, I didn't play Silent Hill 2. I remember that game coming out, and I don't like horror. I'm completely turned off by it. It freaks me out, okay? And I've seen plenty of horror games, but most of the time whenever I see a horror game, I'm covering up the screen. I'm just hearing audio because I'm too scared, okay? That's just the truth. I don't like it. But the thing is that they turned Angela, who's a conventionally normal-looking woman. A woman that you would expect to see in a 2000s era product, film, person. Well, now she has to look like a modern-day freak with these man eyebrows. Some people are calling her Mangela, which is true. We have to now make, because these freaks, these freaking psychologically deranged weirdos that everyone and their mother is running cover fire for, we have to pander to these people. Well, you have this Mangela who looks like a modern day woman, where she's an inbred freaking freak of nature. She doesn't look effeminate. She doesn't look like a woman. Love of God. And you wouldn't expect her to behave like a woman because let's just face it, she looks like a dude. But that's the thing. They want you to think that normal women, for some reason, that normal women look like men. And this is so ridiculous. I'm so sick and tired of this. Because these are freaking weirdos who in real life, they might not be actual women, right? And they're trying to pass off
modern gaming audience.
For modern gaming audience.
I'm very excited for people to play this game. I want people to experience all of it. It's such a journey. It's such a big part of our lives, and I just want people to be able to see it.
And now they want to self-insert themselves onto these female characters and be like, this is what an actual woman looks like. She's frumpy, she barely has well-developed hips, a well-developed waistline, and well-developed boobs. No, she has to look like a man-woman instead. Barely has hips, barely has a waist, barely has boobs. Her face has to look like a man that's trying to look like a woman. Because that's what's normal now. Women who are experiencing, I'm sorry, it's not women, men who are experiencing massive loads of mental illness, that's normal now. That is what has to be normal now. That is what has to be normalized now. Or people who are not normal. That is what's regular now. And it's very clear that game developers, they used to be men, and they used to be normal men. And they made, therefore, products that were realistic towards men and covered realistic aspects of human psychology. Well, now we can't do that. Something's wrong with that, apparently. Sick and tired of this freaking trash, man. Because you have these wacko developers who say it's a wrong thing that you hypersexualize women. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that, right, the old Silent Hill 2 was made by a bunch of men who needed to be told, relax, you're over-sexualizing women. You're telling me men who are creating a product which covers realistic male human psychology, normal psychology, a product which investigates mature themes of realistic thinking patterns within men, and following a narrative about a man that, well, as far as I understand the story, is that he feels guilt, but also he has this desire towards his wife Maria, right? Sexualizing his wife. And she exists, it seems, in Silent Hill 2, in his mind, or whatever happens, right? He ends up going to the town or whatever he's meant to go to. She's dead. He gets a letter from her, though, apparently, and he goes and investigates for her, and now she exists kind of in his mind as this sexified version of who she really was in his life, right? And this makes a lot of sense that, okay, this is a man, he's a husband to his wife, and he desires his wife to be a lot more sexual in certain manners that realistically in reality she wasn't this way. And he has a guilt and a shame for how he desired her before she died from her terminal illness. He has a shame for that, for his desire. And this game kind of investigates in some part the shame that he had, right? And there's sexual elements, but now you have these gaslighting, moralizing, modern day developers who have to say to these old men, you know, air quotes old, these older developers, these men who made good products. Oh, you're a freaking dinosaur. Oh, you never had a proper woman who looks like a man, by the way. These freaking female developers look like freaking freak shows, but okay. They're sitting there gaslighting these men, moralizing them, and I'm so sick and tired of modernity, where we have to moralize everybody for normal things. Hey, guess what? Dark psychology is normal. It's a part of being a man, and in some part being a woman, but nowadays, people are completely malicious, specifically women. Women nowadays are evil. Do not forget that they are freaking deranged. Dark psychology within normal men and women, that's normal. It's a part of ourselves that we have to come to terms with through these products that used to do that. Where we have the main character of Silent Hill 2, right? He's dealing with the fact that he has this kind of moral dilemma up in his head with his wife, who's dead. And that's something that hits home for any man, seeing that kind of a story and being like, yeah, I get that. Like, it's completely normal that I would sexualize my wife, and maybe I want her to be more sexualized than what she is now. But at the same time, maybe myself as a man, I also feel a bit of weird shame or guilt about that, right? And that's an interesting narrative to follow. That's a very mature and adult theme to follow and story to follow. But nowadays, we can't have mature themes and stories to follow any longer. We can't have that. Everything has to be sanitized. Everything has to be babied for you. Apparently, there's something wrong as a man thinking like a man. This is what I've been talking about for a long time now with a lot of these games that I've been reviewing. What used to be a normal man, what used to be normal, dudes just talking crap, but not in a way that's like juvenile, well, air quotes on juvenile, whatever modern day juvenile is, which is really just infantile, which is like, clutch my pearls, I'm offended at everything. No, men used to be able to just sit there and offend each other, and we knew we didn't mean it. And maybe you did mean it, doesn't matter. We weren't freaking pansies, or well, men like back in 2000 era, whatever, or 1990s, right? They weren't pansies. Men could make jokes. It used to be normal that we could make jokes at each other. Either we meant it or we didn't. But at the end of the day, we said what we meant and we didn't hide the truth. And now you look at modern day men and they speak like pansies. They speak like women. They're passive aggressive, like crazy, man. We're sitting here and we act like it's normal that men are passive aggressive freaking loser morons. And now it's normal. Now it's normal to coddle each other's emotions. That when you don't like a guy, you say things, you poke fun at him. You try to say things that are meant to be viperous, but so ambiguous, it can't truly offend, right? This passive aggressive bullcrap. Rather than just joking around with a guy, calling him a slur, but you don't actually mean it. We don't have this anymore. Now you just have freaking pansies for men. And now this is what we get for game developers. And now our games are being made in the image of these coddled, pandering losers. And now you look at this game, you look at Silent Hill 2, it's uglifying the women. They modified the outfits for Maria, specifically, to desexualize it. The developers come out and say that there's something wrong with, these men sexualizing women and that they need to be told, relax. Relax from what? This is how a man authentically thinks, and there's nothing wrong with that. And this is a story, Silent Hill 2, about a man investigating his own shame and his own guilt for how he viewed his wife, and in retrospect, what he still thinks about her. And then we go through the entirety of the story, right? How we realize that he killed her. And there's a bunch of things that you can realize about that, right? It's like, well, maybe she wasn't everything he wanted and he got sick and tired of that. Maybe he couldn't bear her illness any longer. Whatever, you can go through it. And of course, I haven't played the game, so I think there's a most probable conclusion. But old products, and this is something I miss about old games, they used to investigate psychological thinking where you are the one that's left up to interpret. You use your own mind, your own brain, your own intellect. What does this story mean? It's supposed to be a question at the end. Because you're not being preached to. The developers are not using gaming as a podium like they do nowadays. And we have a video, by the way, on that. It hasn't come out yet. I have a lot of videos I have to get to, but whatever. But developers used to make games as art. They used to tell a story. There used to be a purpose and a point behind what a narrative was. And now it's all a podium for their politics. Now it's, let me enforce my political view and you have to believe it, and you're a freaking bigot for not believing it. Now you have these mentally deranged lunatics and freaks. They've completely taken over the industry, and all the creativity and all the raw value has been taken out of the industry completely. So now we don't get good stories, and now we don't get compelling narratives and themes. Now we don't get, and I've been talking about this for a long time now, mature themes. We don't get mature themes within our storytelling any longer. It's not allowed. For some reason, mature themes are wrong. For some reason, following a story that treats its audience and the developers themselves treating themselves as adults. Well, now we have to all be adult children. We have to say that mature themes are problematic. We have to say that mature themes, in some way, somehow, it is dangerous and it's damaging to people. And this is why I cannot stand with modernity, right? Is that you're not responsible for how you process how someone else speaks. Oh, you're a bigot. No, I'm not a bigot. I'm sharing you my freaking opinion. Bunch of people have opinions. I'm sharing with you my opinion. You're a bigot. You're an ist. You're a phobe. Screw you. Literally go screw yourself. Go grab a titanium rod, stick it up your freaking Uranus, okay? Screw you. We have these freaking losers. Because of what they emotionally experience your argument as. Now they have to call you all these freaking names and words, and doesn't stop there, because then they want to do something about you. Used to be that people could literally just tolerate others' opinions. Used to be called this idea that people had opinions, and there were normal people and they had normal opinions. Some people were wrong, some people were correct, but you had your thoughts and ideas, and you shared why you thought your thoughts and ideas before you were either proven or disproven. And that's what mattered. But nowadays, people are not allowed to think freely because we have these modern day children who are they're not mini fascists, they're authentic fascists, and they're worse than the freaking 1930s Germany dudes. Those dudes were actually intelligent, they were actually successful, they actually had some merit to their names, and for one, they were actually masculine. Now you have these modern day children, and they are the most infantile fascists that we can ever believe to see, and they are worse than whatever freaking villain you want to point to in history. Yeah, remember those guys of the Triple K? These people are worse. And they're actually worse. And by the way, this is so made up, pro-social, anti-social. But let's just figuratively speaking, air quotes here, these are pro-social maniacs. And I'm freaking sick and tired of them. I'm sick and tired of how they invade gaming, how they invade these products. They strip away and they take from us what we love. We're not allowed to have what we love. We're not allowed to see and view what we love. And now we can't have products that are authentic any longer. Now our modern day products, they have the service for what? Propaganda. I'm so sick and tired of this, bro. And you look at the Silent Hill 2 remake, and you look at what they've done to these characters, how they're uglifying the women, how they desexualize Mary, and how, by the way, they went out of their way to say that this game is being made for modern audiences. You just look at all of what's going on and you realize, okay. Again, modern audiences. What is modern audiences? What does that mean? It means made for modern day adult children. That's what it means. Adult children who have no business buying your product. Adult children who are never the audience. And adult children who are painfully stunted by adult child parents. These are adult children who are raised by parents who coddled and pandered to them and told them how to think in a world where you should be raised as to how to think like an adult. Instead, they raise you as to how do you think like an absolute child? What's the proper way to think like a child? We need to gear and wire you for that. Nowadays, children are not raised to think like adults. And now we're getting product after product after product, one after the other. We're just getting games, we're getting movies, we're getting stories that are sanitized, that are tropey, that are rehashed nonsense. We're getting products that are not made by adults, and we're getting products that are not made with the intention of maturity in mind. Now, it's all sanitized for the purpose of coddling you. You can't be treated like an adult. No, you have to be perpetually immersed in a world of childish thinking where people are just friends and there's no sexuality involved. We can't have a deep, gritty story, dark story about sexuality between a man and a woman, a man and his wife. We can't have that anymore. There's something problematic about a man who desires his wife. And there's elements that are normal and something that he just never got. It was a repressed desire. He's like, I wish she was more like this for me in our marriage. It's okay, that's normal. That's normal for a man. That's normal for a man with his marriage towards his wife. Okay, we get that. And now you're selling an interesting story off of what men want. Right? Maybe she was too much of a prude, whatever. And there's other types of stories you can have where maybe your wife was too much of a whore, right? And a man is like, you know what, I wish she was more modest. You can have differing elements of a story, and these are normal people. Nowadays, by the way, we don't have normal people. Nowadays, if Silent Hill 2 were made today, remade completely, the entire story, the main male character would be a complete degenerate. He would want his wife getting ran through by all kinds of men or something like that. He would be celebrating being a cuck, and I mean it. You have a lot of people right now who are popularizing and they're glorifying being a cuck and pouring out your wife to every race of man that exists. This is disgusting. The degeneracy goes so far now. We have gone past normal monogamy, normative polygamy, which, by the way, right? A lot of normal aspects to polygamy, but now we've completely made that degenerate. And that's a whole different conversation. I'm talking about Abrahamic, biblical polygamy, but we're not going to get into that. When we look at the West, when we look at Anglo-Saxon ideals, we're talking about here monogamy. But now they want this weird polyamory. They want something that is so deranged, so chaotic, so gross, so disgusting that we've never seen normalized throughout history because it's not normal. And you have these deranged, lunatic weirdos who want to make the irregular, the demented, they want to make it normative. And now we have a story that it used to be authentic, raw, and real. It used to be down to earth. It used to be about these authentic themes that, yes, this is what a man processes through, and men, they process through different things in different relationships because different men, they have different desires, right? And that's normal. That's normal. But nowadays, we would be making a product for irregular men who have very strange fetishes and all kinds of weird stuff. That you have these men who are satanic. But let's not even start going after men. You have more women than men who right now, modern day, are satanic. But you have this problem where we have lost the premise of morality, and stories used to be made from a spiritualist core, a spiritualist theme, an essence, an understanding that we were once a biblical culture where men used to think and believe based upon the Bible, principles and values that stemmed from its text, and they made stories stemming from the ethical basis of the Bible. And now we don't have that. And now we have completely demented people, demented stories and ethics and ideals being pushed in our stories. And this is what I'm talking about, man. I miss authentic stories, dark stories, stories that really, they investigate what is a man's mind? What is the essence of masculinity, or what is the essence of humanity? We can't do that anymore. And you know what? I do miss the horror genre, but also all of the genres that used to investigate truthful human psychology, how a man is thinking, or what is civilization, what is being a woman, or what is femininity. You know, having a story following let's say a woman, and maybe something, some kind of, nowadays we would completely bastardize this. It would be something completely malicious about a woman just hating men or whatever, right? In the feminist essence of it all. Another word that you can say is a woman being in contempt of men. That's what the story nowadays would be. And that's what it is women being in contempt of men, a woman being in competition to men. Nowadays, you're seeing it become more and more normal for women to actively defy men and challenge their authority. Nowadays, men have to be completely vilified. There's something wrong with being a man. And nowadays, there's something wrong with being a woman. A woman needs to be more like a man, and a man needs to stop trying to be a man. That's what we believe nowadays. We want both sexes, genders, to be androgynous. That's what we want. So you look at the Silent Hill 2 remake, you look at what they're doing, and you look at how we're destroying. Just look at what's happening here, man. When you look at your modern day stories, God of War Ragnarok, you look at freaking Last of Us 2, you look at anything that's modern today, you need to realize upon yourself what's happening to these older games specifically, directly indicates what they have been doing to gaming. This is how much we're being sanitized. This is why we cannot have truly deep, truly intellectual, philosophical, speculative stories any longer. Nowadays, our modern stories are made for who? Adult children. Nowadays, our modern stories are doing what? They're pandering to you, they're coddling you, and they're telling you that it's wrong and harmful that we have an authentic storyline following authentic adulthood, authentic men and women, and what they're wrestling with being men and women who have reached adult age, which is, let's face it, before 18 years old, okay, you're a young adult, right? You can process adult matters really by the age of 9, 10 years old, but anyways, that's a completely different conversation where we're completely infantilizing children, and now we act like being 21 years old, you're a freaking child. No. Listen, boys used to work jobs when they were like 12, 13 years old. Boys used to grow up becoming like men at a very young age, and it was normal that they were growing into the world, fleshing themselves out, and now we want men to be little boys. And then we also, on the flip side, we want them to be this, but then we also make fun of them when they're basically adult children by the age of 21. What are you doing, man? What do you want? We infantilize modern men and women, but yet we also want to make fun of men for not being adult enough. And now we're also completely degenerate. We are so skewed now. And now, instead of you taking responsibility for the people around you when you're a young man, right? And a young girl, right? Let's say she's 14 years old and she's preparing to become a wife. Well, now you just have these adult children. Now they all just want to live in perpetual adolescence. And I'm not saying that doing everything that modern people want to do is adolescence, but let's just face it, man. We are coddling ourselves and we're coddling each other nowadays. And now to the very extent and point where you have a mature theme in a game like Silent Hill 2 about a man in his marriage to his wife. And now that's supposed to be seen as wrong, evil, and outdated. But you're telling me what's in date is being a perpetual modern day child where you should have grown up when you were 13 years old. When you hit puberty, you should have grown up, because parents used to expect their children to actually grow up and have a adult mindset once they hit puberty. And even before they hit puberty, but especially once they hit puberty. Okay, son, you now need to think like a man. Okay, daughter, you need to start thinking like a woman. But nowadays we sit here and we say that there's something wrong with thinking like an adult. To the point that now you have these young adults and these adults. And of course, by the way, you are not an adult by the age of 18 years old. It realistically happens when you're 16 or even 15 years old. Again, men used to have way more responsibilities than what they have today. I'm sick and tired of all this freaking coddling and all this infantilization. I'm sick and tired of it. But at the bare minimum, man, you're an adult when you're 18 years old. What the frick is going on here? But this is what they want. They want you to be a perpetual child. And they want you now to ingest the products of perpetual children. These adults who never grew up, they never assimilated into society. And by the way, let's be very clear about this. This is something that has been lost on modern audiences, right? That supposed audience, this fictitious audience that all these modern day games are made for. Okay, let's be very clear about this. Sexualization is socialization. Vice versa. Socialization is sexualization. You understanding how to mature yourself within the world starts from a very young age. And from a very young age, what happens? Young boys and girls, they sexualize. And through sexualization, they learn how to socialize. Nowadays, this has been completely botched and made up. So I hate even saying this, because now everything I'm saying now has a modern lens applied to it. I know exactly what I mean when I say this, but now, because of how we bastardized words, and by the way, a part of leftism is to deconstruct meaning and words. But a part of growing up to be a man is, and by the way, a part of sexualization is realizing your competition amongst other men, and also realizing how do you compete for women, and vice versa for women, how they compete amongst other women sexually for men. And of course, it's very different how the two sexes, how they compete for one another and how they're desirable to one another. But this starts at the inception of puberty and after puberty. And this happens through the chaos of freaking high school. You're figuring out how to socialize with a girl, how a girl socializes with a boy. Now we've completely lost this, because why? And you look at modern day men and women, and you're looking at this perpetual adolescence in men and women, modern day men and women. What is happening? They're no longer sexualizing healthily. And by the way, to sexualize is to what? Heterosexuality. But nowadays you don't have that. Nowadays, we're demonizing young boys and girls sexualizing. No, this is normal. Young boys and girls must and should sexualize. This is how they socialize. This is how you mature. This is how you become an adult, is understanding and learning. How does a young boy speak to a girl and other boys? Okay, because it all changes once you hit puberty. And how does a young girl, how does she speak to other girls, and how does she speak to boys? Once they both hit puberty, and then how do they interact with each other? How do they seek out their congruency? But this is what you have nowadays. You have adult children who do not understand how to sexualize. They do not understand how to socialize, and therefore they are perpetual children. And now we have issues where modern day men and women, they're not getting married. They're not having kids. Why do you think that is? It's because nobody's growing up. We have these perpetual modern children. And now we're getting products made by the perpetual children of our modern landscape. So when we have a story like Silent Hill 2, it's a very mature story, follows a very mature storyline, and it follows a very mature character and his very normative desires of his wife. But now, of course, right, everything has to be degeneracy. Nowadays, there's something wrong with how a man views his wife, his significant other. We can't follow a storyline that follows what some men truly wrestle with in their relationship, let's say, to their wife. Again, if this story were made today, it would be completely degenerate. He would probably be a cuck, and he would want his wife to be ran through by every man imaginable. But on top of this, we don't understand simple things like the fact that sexualization is socialization, vice versa, socialization is sexualization. We do not understand this very thing, and nowadays you have these legitimate freaking weirdos, lunatics, these files, we like to call them. But let's not even go that far. It's becoming a growing issue, but let's not even go that far. You just have these terminal children who are now raising the next generation, and they're also viewing the world through the lens that there's something wrong with sexualization, something wrong with the essence of true socialization, and now they've completely perverted these very things in the very dynamic between sexualization and socialization. So now, if we had that premise, that concept explored in a modern product, what do you think it would turn out to be? We know what it would turn out to be. Yeah, it would be drag queen story hour. That's what it would be. We have completely bastardized everything that used to make normal people. And why do you think mental illness, which is mental sabotage, why do you think it's so popular? I want you to sit on that, because nowadays apparently it takes a genius to figure out what that means and what it is. Just think about it for a long second. Why do you think today there is so much mental illness?